What is pussy poppin', you beautiful humans? My name is Ariane Andrew.
I'm Matt Dillon, and welcome to another piping hot episode of Sippin' the Tea, where we what, Ariane?
Where we sip the tea and our guests spill.
Spill that tea!
You
We just
didn't
got
leave
these
me
new
hanging.
mics. We are not playing games, motherfucker. We are not
You're
playing
not,
games.
but you didn't leave me hanging today, so thank you.
I'm trying my best. Where's your co-hosty?
She sleep. Mm-hmm. Where's your co-host?
Samey, babe. But we're joined by a fellow. He's part of all the worlds. He is a podcaster with his new podcast. He is an AEW wrestler. He's also a fashionista because I've been looking at that IG man, and I've been seeing like he's trying to do that. When the Super Bowl happens and all the big players walk out. I'm like, this guy's got flavor. He's here. Scorpio Sky, my man. What is up? How you doing?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be on the show.
Awesome.
We're excited to have you. So we are just going to dive right on in and backtrack a little bit. So 2020 was an interesting year, I like to say. Very, very interesting. When you take a step back, what is one takeaway that you had personally and with your career?
Man, just overall, I feel like 2020 was a year of survival for so many people. And I don't think anyone figured that, on January 1st, 2020, that we were going to get hit with this like pandemic that was going to literally change the world and change the way we live our lives day to day and how we do business. But it happened so quickly and we all adjusted so fast that it just showed that we can get through anything, and everyone just kind of has to come together and it's catch as catch can and make adjustments, and that's exactly what we did, and that is a testament to mankind in itself, and I'm really, really happy with how everyone has come through this. And obviously there were some tragic times and we lost some people, and it's you can't replace that, but we came through it and we're still working through it, but you can kind of see a light at the end.
Yeah. I mean, can we dive a little bit deeper? Like with your career, what is one takeaway that you have?
Oh man. So, I wanted to be a professional wrestler my entire career or my entire life. And the dream was always to get to big arenas and wrestle in front of 5, 10, 15,000 people on a weekly basis. Like that's what you grew up watching and that's what you grew up dreaming of doing. And I would wrestle on the independent circuit, which was in front of anywhere from 50 to a couple hundred people. So I finally make it to the big stage on AEW, and I'm wrestling in front of 10,000 people, but it's not that long because we started in the middle of 2019, and then here comes 2020, middle of 2020, and now fans are gone. So I am back wrestling in front of anywhere between 20 to 50 of friends of mine that are other wrestlers, and it obviously that wasn't that big of an adjustment, but it was a little bit tough because as we feed off of the fans. We feed off that energy that the fans give us, and when we don't have that anymore, you have to find ways. So for me, it was a huge transition. Personally, as far as like the gyms closing was big for me because I'm a workoutaholic, you know what I mean? And I would go from working out anywhere from 4 to 5 days a week to 0 days and having to try to work out at home, and it's just not working, for me. And so I still think my body is still recovering from the pandemic and not being able to work out as often as I like to. But finally, gyms are open. I'm back at it. And I think the best is coming.
Nicely put. How do you think in terms of all these adjustments and living the dream and then this global pandemic, how did you handle that, I guess, on a mental level? Because you seem very kind of level and like in terms of like knowing what you want. And I'm looking and kind of just leaning over your career and like working out how you're making these moves, getting into media, the podcasting. How did it affect you on like more like an internal level besides the word like on a mental state?
Well, I've always been a really like go person and was like enjoyed being busy 7 days a week. I am a workaholic. I love, especially when it's something I'm passionate about. I love being busy. But during the pandemic, I had to learn to slow down, because you go from working all the time to now I'm just home looking at the walls every day. At first, it was like a vacation, but once you get a week in and 2 weeks in, and it doesn't feel like a vacation, you're like, okay, this is life, So it was weird, and but it was good for me to slow down, and I definitely became a little bit of a homebody, and I relaxed. And now it's just shifting back into work mode because now I'm finding myself. I got to go on the road. I'm like, oh man, I really like being home. Like being home is nice.
So funny how that happens.
It's
Crazy.
so
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think for all of us, especially people who have like the mindset that we do, because we're all entertainers in some form or fashion. And I feel like when you're in that business, you have to have a hustler mentality. So I think it was kind of nice for all of us just to kind of sit back, reflect, have a moment with family, friends, and kind of catch up on life, and then make us remember like, oh, okay, this is great, because when you're going, like you're getting back on the road, you're gonna be on the go, and it's gonna be like go nonstop. With all this being said, though, let's backtrack a little bit, for some audiences who are not familiar with wrestling, kind of getting to know who you are, a little small, brief background of who you are and how you got into wrestling and how your journey kind of started from going from independence now to one of the biggest stages in the world, AEW.
Well, I grew up, I was born and raised here in Southern California. I was born in Pomona. And as long as I can remember, I've always been a wrestling fan. Like everyone has this like distinct memory of like, oh, I was sitting with my uncle and my uncle was watching wrestling. I don't have that. I just always loved wrestling, and I can't remember not loving wrestling. And to that extent, I can't really remember not wanting to be a pro wrestler when I grew up. I mean, as weird as it sounds, it was the only thing I ever wanted to be. I mean, I had friends that were kids when I was a kid that, they were like, oh, I want to be a cop. I want to be a fireman. I want to be a superhero. And I was always just like, well, I want to be a pro wrestler, Yeah, it was always there. And once I was old enough, I found a wrestling school. I trained at it when I was 16. I was in high school, and I trained for a little bit, but I didn't have a car, and it was about an hour away. So I had to kind of not continue that until I graduated. And then I started training again while I was in college, and I was extremely broke, didn't have very much money. And the guy that trained me was gracious enough, and he saw enough potential to train me for free. And all I had to do was kind of set up chairs and help set up the ring, tear down the ring, and do all the stuff you're supposed to be doing anyway and paying your dues. And so I'm very grateful to that. I trained for almost a year before I had my first match. And then the rest is history. I ended up dropping out of college so I could start traveling. Yeah, I'm a college dropout like Kanye, but it finally worked out.
Look at you now. Okay.
Yeah. I don't recommend anybody dropping out of college. I definitely think it's something I would like to go back and complete and get my degree as well. So that's in the plans. But yeah, I mean, and now I've been wrestling for a good almost 19 years.
Wow.
A lot of hard years. Some more hard than more hard ones than easy ones, but it was fun the entire way.
Wow, that's a story. But so when was that breakthrough moment for you when you're wrestling on the independent circuit? Because again, for like viewers who are not familiar with wrestling and the independent circuit and stuff like that, how long were you in the independent circuit before you got that call of like, okay, or that transition of like, this is going to be now 1000% official with AEW?
So it's an interesting journey. I had a lot of ups and downs. I had injuries. I had being young and stupid controversies that really kind of derailed me a little bit at times. And so at the same time, I was working a day job because wrestling wasn't paying the bills. In the wrestling business, when you're on your way up, you might get $20, you might get $50. Once you get a little bit of a name for yourself, you can make a couple hundred at best, but you're not making a lot of money. So I worked a day job for most of my career.
Wow.
Excuse me. And Again, I had a lot of ups and downs, a lot of close calls where it was like, you get a tryout, you go, you think you killed it. Everybody says you killed it. And then you look at your phone for a month or two and nothing ever happens.
You killed it. You killed it. It's so dead.
Yes. Yeah. Killed the phone lines.
You
Apparently.
killed the phone line. It's out, man.
Yeah. There was a lot of situations like that. And then I had some personal issues. In 2014, I lost my mom. Later in the year, I lost my father as well. I was much closer to my mom than my father, but just losing both of them in 1 year was just something that hit me very, very hard. And I got to a point a year or so later where I had to be realistic, and I just said, okay, wrestling's not really working. I love it. I've given it so much, but it's just not really working out for me. And I was pretty happy with my current day job at the time and felt like I could kind of become a normal person. And so I said, a couple months from now, this is 2016. I said, a couple months from now, I'll quit wrestling and I'll just be a full-time normal person. And then not that long after I said that, maybe a month or so, I go to work one day and I find out I didn't have a job anymore. And so after years, I was laid off.
I thought you were going to say something else.
Me too. I just fell off the fucking chair for a second there. I was like, the universe is, all right, continue. I'm glued in. Hang on.
Yes. So I go and I find out I don't have a job anymore after years and years and years of working for that company. And it's a moment of like, okay, what do I do now? And I always tell this story. I left that job that day. It was, I think it was like a Friday in January of 2016. I left, I went straight to my mom's gravesite and I sat there and I was kind of talking to her, talking to myself, talking to God. And I said, whatever path I'm supposed to go on, show me, because I don't know. And I thought about it for a couple of hours. I went home. A couple of my coworkers called me and they just said, this place was holding you back. You have to chase your dreams. You need to really go after it. And I said, okay, I'm going to give wrestling 100% and see what happens. Either I'm going to knock it out of the park or I'm going to strike out. But, there will be no questions at that point. And I went as hard as I absolutely could. The Indies first started working out. The Indies led to Ring of Honor, which was the first company I was able to work with consistently that had a name. And Ring of Honor led to AEW.
Wow.
That's some powerful shit, man. That's the universe that just like going into that job and then there's no job left. I actually thought you were gonna be like, oh, I quit the job and then I got the AEW the next. I was like, shit, that's really. Thank you for like opening up about that because that's so powerful and life. You went back and you just like worked your ass off and you put the mentality into there, and that's what people I think sometimes these days. They expect things to just flow and happen for them for the reason that they're breathing. Well, I expect this. You're proof in the pudding that shit looks like a roller coaster and it takes lefts and it takes rights. And you got to pick yourself up and dust your shit off. And this is the story that I love hearing these stories. This is why we do this show, to meet people that she knows, I may not know, that like make the fucking hairs go up because life is not a nice cookie cutter. It is for some people. I don't know anybody personally.
I don't either.
That are in my circle, but I see things out there and I'm like, damn, bitch, I should have had a last name like that. But it's all good. I'm gonna keep working.
That makes the story. And thank you for opening up, like Matt said, because I think it's so important. People see a character or people see Instagram, but I think it's so nice to have these moments too. Sip the tea while you spill the tea, to let people know that it's not like, oh, it happened overnight. Like, I didn't even know your personal story with like your family. Like, that's a lot to deal with. So, I mean.
Thank you. Yeah. I would love to be able to say that I was brave enough to quit my job and put it all on the line and bet on myself, but I really wasn't. I had bills to pay and I was comfortable in that day job. And the thing about working a day job while you're really chasing the dream, sometimes you have to do it. I did, but one always takes from the other because, you're going to turn down opportunities. If I get an opportunity to go to Australia for 2 weeks, but it's only on one day's notice, I can't go to my boss at work and say, hey, can I get 2 weeks off? You know what I mean? So you got to turn that down. And then, they don't want to promote you at your job because, you take time off for wrestling. So, everything takes from the other. And I was not brave enough to just quit and bet on myself. But I did, in a way, bet on myself because I did get laid off, and I did have other offers. I had options I could have taken, but that's when I did decide, okay, I am going to bet on myself and go after this dream of pro wrestling and see if I can make something happen. And thank God I was able to.
Yeah.
I think you should say, rephrase it like this. I'm a publicist as a day job. You should say, I was brave enough to stand the test of time. Because you
Ooh.
were brave enough to stand the test of time and to continue and actually never give up on that wrestling dream. Because you could have given up on that, but you were brave enough to stand the test of time. Don't worry about the braveness to quit a job. The braveness was to continue that path after losing a job. So there you go. There's your spin now.
I like that. Turn
There's
around, bitch. I love that. She's got them green with envy. So good.
That's a true fan here, people. Yeah.
I
Oh
love
my
it.
gosh, I would get up and do the cack, but now
That's not. You're still in your pajamas on the bottom.
Aren't we all?
adapting to the new normal.
That's it, man.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yes, so I mean, we've gotten to know about Skylar Andrews, okay, like the real. But how did the name Scorpio Sky come around? How did that name derive?
So when again, I started training, and eventually it got to a point where I had to have a first match. But the guy that trained me and the company that I trained with was more of a lucha libre Mexican wrestling style of wrestling, and so most of the guys wore masks. And they said, why don't we start you with a mask and you can lose it down the line? And I said, great, cool. But I didn't have a name. And, a lot of masked wrestlers don't go by their government names. You can't just be, masked wrestler Scorpio or Skylar Andrews, it doesn't work. And so there was another wrestler before me, I'm sure that you know of. His name was Too Cold Scorpio. So I had a ponytail like the wrestler Too Cold Scorpio at the time. And while I was training, my trainer would just give us all nicknames, and he just called me Scorpio because he thought I resembled him, and it stuck. And when it came time for me to have my first match, it was like the day before the match, and we didn't have a name yet. And he said, "Why don't we just call you Scorpio Sky, and then we'll change it later if we have to." It stuck. We just never changed it.
And
That's so funny.
There is history.
I love that. And you also like pre-pandemic wearing the mask, Mexican style wrestling. So it's kind of like you were preparing yourself for what was about to come. What was that like though? Like that first kind of moment for you, like in front of an audience, like a bigger arena audience, before it all hit. Having that dream as like a young man coming into that and being like, damn, like what's that energy like for you? I know chatting with Ariane, having those discussions, like the electricity that through your blood. What was that like for you personally, having that one of your first times?
In front of a big audience,
Yeah.
it's insane. Like I remember though doing those shows, and thank goodness we're going back to it. We're starting back on the road in July. Very excited about it. We're going to Miami. We're going to Texas. We're finally getting back on the road, and we're going to have fans back. And as a matter of fact, I believe on our next pay-per-view, which is in Jacksonville still, we are going to have a full house there. So I'm very excited about that. Makes a huge difference. But having that moment when you're going to different arenas every week and you're wrestling in front of anywhere between 5,000 and 10,000 people, it just gave me that feeling of like, yeah, this is exactly what I dreamed of when I was growing up. Like, this is why I started. And I'm so fortunate and happy to be able to do this, because I almost couldn't, I've almost quit a bunch of times, and just not everyone makes it to the big stage. And I am incredibly grateful that I'm able to get to this point and still compete and hopefully have many years at this level.
You're humble too. I you got many years ahead. I feel a good vibe from you, man.
Yes, put that shit into the universe. It's happening already. So
yeah, it's out there.
Exactly. So I mean, I know we touched on your story, and you kind of shared, like, I guess you could say if people were listening, people could take away a nugget of, not just wrestling, but like I said before, wrestling, entertainment, singing, acting, it's all kind of falls through the same bubble of like getting the door shut in your face multiple times before a door opens. So what would be your advice to a young boy, young girl, even a grown man or woman out there,
A grown boy.
a grown boy who is feeling like, I feel defeated. I want to give up. Like, what would be your advice to them?
Stay the course and don't set limits on your dream. You know, a lot of people will say things like, if I don't make it by this age or by this time or at this point in my life, I'm just going to give up or I'm going to find something else to do. Don't do that, because you might quit, 8 stages into your journey and all you need to do is get to 10, so don't put a time limit on your dream. And the other thing, again, stay the course, keep going. I always talk about the analogy of, everyone talks about the light at the end of the tunnel. But the reality is that's easy. If you see a light at the end of the tunnel, that's easy. What's hard is not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and walking that tunnel and having people tell you there's no light at the end of this tunnel for you. You might as well turn around and go back. It's not there. And then saying, thank you very much. I'm going to keep walking. That's what really is difficult. Walking through that tunnel when you don't see a light and you don't know if there's ever going to be a light. But when you get to it, it's all the more rewarding.
Whoa, I just got like a little bit of chills.
All right, TED Talks.
Okay.
All right, TED Talks.
Scorpio Sky as a motivational speaker.
Oh, I see it already.
Add that to the list of the things you do. I love that so much for the simple fact that, people do give like these corny cliche answers, and hey, again, to each their own, but I appreciate what you said. It's like, oh yeah, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, that's easy. Anybody can do that. If we all were told, okay, in 5 years, you're going to get to where you would be, you'd probably slack. You wouldn't do the things that you did to get you to that level. So I appreciate you so much for saying that, because, also too, people look at a social media and can just look and be like, it was overnight, or this person didn't go through the struggle. Oh no, anyone who's had success has gone through, not everybody, but most people have gone through some shenanigans. So I definitely appreciate you saying that. So I have to ask, what's next for you? Spill the tea. Like, what can we expect? What goals are you trying to make happen? Whether that be in AEW, and your podcast, we're gonna have to touch on that too. But your podcast and everything, like, what are your goals?
Okay, I'm going to put this out into the universe because I don't speak about this openly that much. But the next goal for me, and the reason why I wanted to do a podcast and things of that nature, is I would like to cross over and do some other things. I'm far from a model, but I'd like to get into some fashion. I'd like to get into some style and maybe some television and things of that nature. Like, I would like to work with brands. I love clothing and shoes and, again, style. And that's something that it's a world I really want to get into, because putting together an outfit or seeing someone else put something together and influencing I follow so many influencers that just give me so many ideas, and it just, when you look good, you feel good. And so that's something that I want to help other people with. I want them, and one of the things is certain brands and styles will only cater to certain body types. Mm-hmm. And, I think for me, some days I might want to look preppy one day, and I might want to look grungy the next. Like, I want to have a whole just like variety of things that fit everyone. And so putting all of these ideas into action is what I'm still trying to figure out. But that's one of my big goals. I want to partner with some brands and some companies and come up with just, something for everybody. So that's a big one for me. And again, I want to cross over. I'd like to do a little bit of TV and get into acting as well. And just expand my brand outside of falling down into a wrestling ring.
You always pick the good ones, all right? I was like, we're going to talk, my brother. You remind me of Nolan, man. You remind me of my NFL player, actually. He has the same thing. I was like, here's Harper's Bazaar. Here's all my work. Let's go.
Matt Matt's like, oh, well, if you need a publicist, let me
I
just.
was like, ding dong, the witches said what's popping.
I love it. I was at this like brunch once, and I ran into I just ended up talking to so it was a woman, and she told me, she's like, yeah, I'm a fashion designer, and I'm like, really? And like I must have picked her brain for an hour. I'm just like,
Yeah.
yeah. And like all my friends are like partying and getting it in, and I'm just like, yeah, so okay, so tell me about this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's about the business, man. When
Yeah.
you're dreaming big, you gotta like hustle those dreams for sure. And
Yeah.
I see that as a thing with all of us. I'm like, my work is like, I love it, but at the same time, I'm like, I live and breathe it. So it's like expanding and growing and
Connect.
the whole thing. So I'm like, let's talk about a little bit more about the podcast though, because that is your first foray and it's visual like this. So we're getting to know you on a visual level. And I think you're really pairing it with your social media. Because what I noticed straight away was those kind of walking shots in fashion. I was like, he's wearing these, because I don't do the wrestling. I was like, hang on a minute, what's this? What is this part of this story? What is this part of this story? So the podcast. Tell us a little bit about it, because I know fans are digging it, and it only launched in January of this year, correct?
Yes. We just
Right.
started. Actually, the plan started formulating before COVID, and the
Right.
pandemic put things on the back burner for quite a while. And so we ended up launching in January of this year. I was approached with the idea of doing it, like I said, almost a little over a year ago, and I just thought it was a great opportunity to expand myself and open up and show the wrestling fans, and not just the wrestling fans, but fans in general, a different side of me, and get to know me, the person. And so that's it's called Wrestling with the Week, but it's actually not necessarily a wrestling podcast. We talk a lot about wrestling because I'm a professional wrestler, and the co-host James Willems is a huge wrestling fan. So with wrestling being a big part of our lives, of course we're going to talk about it, but we talk about music and pop culture and video games and all kinds of different things. And we're having guests. I'd love to have you guys on at some point, and we can
Oh, we're gonna
talk.
get a pussy popping, don't you worry.
Let's go. Yeah, let's go. Oh, I'd love to. I love just having conversations, and
Yeah.
again, it's just another opportunity for me to reach out and hopefully bring in some new fans. And I have actually been reached out to by a lot of fans that have listened to our show and said, hey, now I love watching wrestling because I have someone to cheer for, and that it makes it so
That's
worth
dope.
it. Love it.
It's also smart branding. It's like, my God, I always say to Ariane, because we met after she left WWE, and I was like, damn, girl. And we did a lot of shit together. We did major stuff. And I was like, if I had you in the WWE, honey, you'd
Woo!
still be
Would have been a
epic.
wrap. But I always say, everything falls in line.
And here we are years later doing our own show together.
Almost
So this
years
is
now.
what,
Yeah. It's how it happens. But that's super cool. I love how you didn't just make it about wrestling. And,
Right.
some wrestling fans may, hate me even more. But it's just because like life just isn't about that. Like, like there's other things outside of wrestling. So it's great that you're able to combine so many different worlds into one. So look at you. You were just over here pussy popping on it.
Yeah, I think I really need to pussy pop, so like
Definitely. If you ain't pussy popping in life, you ain't enjoying your shit.
You are not. You are not living your best. You're living your best life, not your best life.
Cosign.
So we are going to go ahead and end off with some rapid fire. So it's the first thing that comes to your mind. Please don't give us a story, okay? Because some wants a story. Okay.
Okay. I'm so bad at this, by the way, just so you know.
Okay, so come on, you got to be quick with it.
Ding, ding, ding.
Who do you call on a bad day?
Christian Cole, one of my best friends.
Boom.
Okay. Are you more a sneakerhead or into like wallets, purses, man baggy situations? If you had to you had a voucher to go somewhere, you're gonna go like get the top sneaker. You're gonna go get like a nice leather carry. What's popping?
Sneakerhead. Love bags though.
There you go.
Boom.
Equality for all, I say.
What is one thing that you need to work on about yourself?
Ooh, that's rapid fire round.
That's rapid fire. Patience.
Okay, it's good.
I think that's a beautiful way to end. We could all use some patience in that.
I
I got nothing to come back from that from. I think if
that is true. I always say to be aggressively patient.
That's great. I mean, I think it just in general, patience, man. And I would say the biggest thing for me would be when I get upset about something,
Mm.
to be patient, stop, don't react just yet, and really think things through. Because I've gotten in some trouble over the years. You know, I used to have a very bad temper. You know, I gotten in fights over days, and back in my younger days and that sort of thing. And just to be patient, and I'm such a more wise person these days that I'm learning, but it's always a work in progress, right?
I wouldn't know anything about fights with anybody ever, right, Ari?
No, you wouldn't. I mean, I think we have some diarrhea of the mouth. We've come a long way, but I think our mouth has really gotten me into some trouble. So
Same.
hey,
Listen, it is what it is.
that's what
Being
makes us
authentic
who we are.
and
So and it's about growing and learning. But for people who are living under a motherfucking rock, let everybody know where they can follow you at, where they can follow you with wrestling, where to listen to the podcast, the whole nine, spill the tea.
Please follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Scorpio Sky. I am also on TikTok sometimes, Scorpio Sky Official. All those pages are verified, so make sure it's not one of the fake ones. And you can please listen to Wrestling with the Week on all of your major podcast platforms. And we are live every Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 Eastern on the AEW, YouTube, and Rooster Teeth.
there you go. There you go. It's not competing with Sippin the Tea on Tuesday, so I'm down to support that shit.
I would never compete with Sippin the Tea.
Let's not do that.
Where can everybody follow you at, Matt Dillon?
You can follow me at Matt Dillon 1983. And what about you? It's a white vision today with little pop. What's popping?
You guys can pussy pop on over and follow me across the board at Ariane Andrew, and of course follow Sippin the Tea and on Instagram and Sippin the Tea TV1 on Twitter. Of course, like, subscribe, comment, share with all your friends, blast this shit. And of course, if you're an auditory person, then you can listen to this on all digital streaming platforms. But we will catch you guys same time, same place of another episode of Sippin the Tea TV show. Ting.